sure how accurate that is, but the claim has been made. I mean, it certainly is possible. But even during the Warren Commission reenactments, they had a guy that was able to beat Oswald's time. So it's like, and the CBS reenactments had a guy that was able to beat Oswald's time.
They did. Well, what conspiracy theorists say that they didn't use Oswald's gun.
Yeah.
They used a manual Carcano, but not the exact weapon that Oswald used. I don't know. Look.
Which, of course, they would say, right? They have to say something. Oh, puppies.
So, all right, so the way I looked at it, I mean, the thing that created doubts in my mind that the single bullet theory had something to it after all was okay, because the alternate scenario is okay. So if you don't believe in a single bullet theory, you have to believe that Kennedy and Connolly were struck by two different shots, because the time frame is the time interval is too short, right? It's like within like
a fraction of a second,
right?
Yeah.
So that means there were two shooters at the back.
Yeah.
For that, you have to produce evidence. So all the ballistic evidence points towards one weapon that was fired. All the bullet fragments that were recovered, you know. And logistically, how is it possible for two shooters to have been then in the Schoolbook Depository, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how did the second shooter get away with it? It's a miracle that even Oswald got away with it, right? Why would you take such a risk? You know?
Well, like they're gonna say, well, because you have to make sure that the job gets done, but it's like it gets to the point where there's just like logical impracticalities. You know,
right.
Setting up one team of shooters is going to be hard enough. Setting up multiple teams of shooters, now instead of having the problem of you have the one team that needs to egress, get into position, shoot, exfil undetected, you have that exact same problem but multiple times. So this just invariably makes everything harder. And it's like,
well, to be honest, a lot of conspiracy theorists don't believe in a grassy knoll shot. They believe there were two shots from behind. Like this Robert Harris guy on YouTube, they believe the shot came from Daltech. But even that, I mean, there's the ballistic evidence is really the clincher. I mean,
yeah.
Well,
it's like, you know, who was it? The Dallas County Sheriff Roger Craig, was it? That claimed he saw a Mauser.
Deputy Sheriff, yeah.
And he said it had a 7.65 Mauser stamped on it. It's okay. Well, where are the 7.65 projectiles? Where are the 7.65 shells?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
why is this rifle? Why would they take the shells but leave the rifle? You know?
See, that never made any sense to me. Because for a long time, I did buy the Mauser story, but I started thinking, like, you know, why would you go through all that trouble of framing Oswald with a Mannlicher Carcano from back in March, right? A fake ID, a fake postal order, money order,
fake post office box,
fake post office box,
fake photos of you holding it in your backyard
photos,
that your wife lied about taking,
fake fingerprints.
Yeah.
And you go through all that trouble, and then you leave a Mauser there. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Fake shirt fibers in the stock, fake blanket fibers inside of the bag. Like, I gotta tip my hat. This is a pretty good frame up, man. Like, this is pretty thorough, you know? Normally, people aren't really this thorough.
But then at the end of the day, they shot themselves in the foot.
By leaving the wrong gun.
By leaving the wrong gun.
They were able to perfectly recover all the other evidence, even presumably fragments of projectiles inside the target's bodies. But the rifle they left behind for Roger Craig to find. Yeah, good work, conspiracy.
And Roger Craig is not reliable, I'm sorry.
No, he's not. He had mental health problems. He eventually took his own life. It's sad, and I'm not trying to disparage Roger Craig, but ultimately he's not a reliable source of information.
No.
He's just not. Also, a thing to consider is I'm a firearms enthusiast, and I actually own a Carcano Model 9138.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Mine is tricked out to look exactly like the one Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated President Kennedy with. Same scope, same homemade strap, same everything. I took it to Dallas the last time I was there, and the boys got a chance to shoot it. It was good fun.
Okay.
But the thing is,
Where did you shoot it, though?
at a rifle range in just outside of Dallas. It was a nice place. After we were done, the range officer came up to me and he was like, yeah, guys were tapping me on the shoulder being like, hey, you know what those guys got over there? That's Oswald's rifle. The thing is...
Oh, so the memory's still there, eh?
Yeah. Bolt action rifles only really come in 3 flavors. They all date from the late 19th century, the late 1800s. There's the Lee Enfield style, which is an English design. There is the Mosin Nagant style, that's a Russian design. And then there's a Mauser style, that's a German design. So pretty much every single bolt action rifle belongs to one of these 3 families. So Carcano rifles are Mauser style bolt action rifles. They're Italian Mauser variants. Now in this case, I'm not sure. I heard that the Carcano rifles were recognized variants in the sense that they were produced under license from Mauser, but I'm not sure if that's entirely true or not. I haven't been able to find a lot of information. But either way, whether they were built under license from Mauser or they just took like quote unquote design inspiration from Mauser, either way they belong to the Mauser family of rifles.
Right.
So if you point to a Carcano rifle, you say there's a Mauser rifle,
Right.
that is not necessarily an incorrect identification.
And that's pretty much what Seymour Weitzman said, right?
Yeah.
During the London trial. Somebody brought up this analogy when he say Kleenex, right? See, that's a brand name, but generally we would say Kleenex for any type of wipe, right? So you don't mean that it's the Kleenex brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I guess Weitzman and Moon should have been a little bit more careful about what they said, but
Well, like,
sorry, these things happen, right?
yeah,
In the world of the conspiracy theorists, people can never screw up. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Everything has to function like clockwork. There are no fudge factors. I mean, I don't know what kind of a world these people live in.
well, it's a fictional one because what they believe is not true, right? And I mean, oftentimes I'll ask people, well, what is the best fact in support of the argument that that the JFK assassination was a conspiracy? What's the best fact in support of that argument? Because it's like, look, if the best fact is bullshit, then the second, third, fourth best fact isn't going to be any better. So let's just cut to the chase and tell me, like, what is the reason you believe this personally? And when you can get them to actually address that question, invariably it's some variation of I feel it inside of me, it's like it's a subjective personal belief that's mostly based on emotion, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, that's part of it. And Martin J. Kelly also brought up a good point one time in one of our discussions. He said, and I've noticed this myself, he said a lot of conspiracy theorists, it doesn't matter what conspiracy they believe in, but they seem to have a streak of paranoia.
Oh yeah.
So they have trust issues, really.
They have, whenever there's an unknown, they always jump to interpret that unknown in like the most sinister possible interpretation. You know what I mean? Like, it can't just be that things are what they are. It's like there's always these sinister elements that underlie everything.
And to be honest, the government hasn't made it easier by lying about
Everything.
Yeah. But again, you have to take things on a case-by-case basis. See, I'm not saying conspiracies don't happen or that people didn't have a motivation to get rid of JFK. but it doesn't end there. What they call means, opportunity, means, and motivation, right? So that is a starting point of an investigation. It does not prove guilt,
Yeah, of course not.
right? So that cui bono thing, right? Who had the most to gain from it? All right, you start out the investigation there, but thousands of people had a motivation to get rid of JFK.
Yeah.
But you need, at the end of the day, you need hard, solid evidence.
And I mean, JFK, he's kind of depicted in the conspiratorial version. He's kind of depicted as the underdog. But I mean, who are you kidding? JFK came from a very wealthy, very powerful family.
Yeah.
He had access to the best education, the best at everything.
Mm-hmm.
His brother is the attorney general, and he has friends all over the place,
Right.
It's like, it's part of the reason why Lyndon Johnson would not leave Texas without Jackie Kennedy was because he had to worry about Kennedy loyalists inside of the Democratic Party and how they would interpret that move.
Right.
Which, in all fairness, this only serves to demonstrate Lyndon Johnson's acute political acumen,
Yeah, it does.
Like, he
showed it from day one.
he was a very good politician,
Very good politician,
and he
yeah.
knew, like, I can't leave
Total pro.
the murdered president and his widow here. People will never forgive me for that, even though it probably is what he should have done, I was gonna say something, but I lost my train of thought.
No,
Definitely go to Dallas because the boys are going to be there, and there's nothing like going with a group of people who share your interest. And it's like everywhere you go, you'll have somebody there to chit chat with and talk, and it's a really great experience, man. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough. I would be going if I could justify the cost of a fourth trip to Dallas inside of 3 years.
I hear you.
But there was a moment for me. There was a couple of moments that really brought it home. One is seeing Dealey Plaza for the first time. You'll forever after, when you see photos of it, you can be like, hey, I've been there.
Right.
It was, we were looking at the sites in Oak Cliff, which is actually not that far from Dealey Plaza at all.
Right.
It really isn't. And we were at the rooming house. Then we walked to the scene of the Tippit shooting. Then we were at the Texas Theater, and then we ended up at the Neely Street Apartments where the backyard photos were taken. I took my own backyard photos, by the way. I got to show you those before we...
All right.
I'll send it to you before we leave today. But right close to the Neely Street apartment, there is what is today an empty lot. But back in Oswald's time, a little low-rise apartment building stood on that spot. And when I saw how close his rooming house, the Elsbeth apartment, the Neely Street apartment, like just geographically how close these things are to him, how close they are to one another, it really drove it home to me, because in my own personal life, I have known people that were like that. Young couples, sometimes with kids, usually without, but they're from a certain neighborhood and all of their friends and their family is in that neighborhood, right? So they'll bounce from one shitty basement apartment to another a couple of blocks over.
Right.
And then a couple months later, they got a problem with the landlord, so they bounce to another shitty apartment 2 streets down, but always in the same kind of like 1.5 kilometer radius, So when I saw that, it was, it just kind of drove it home to me, and it made it seem all the more real, It made it seem like, okay, I can kind of understand these people now because I've seen similar things like this in my own life. Another moment was on my last day there of my first trip. Fred James and I were at the Ruth Payne house, and we were just standing in the backyard at the clothesline.
Okay.
And he said to me, imagine it's Friday, November 22nd, 1963, and Ruth and Marina are standing right where we're standing, hanging up their washing when they go inside for lunch, It's just like, when you're there, it makes it real. A picture in a book will not take you there.
No. I hear you. So how much has that place changed?
Not much, really. I mean, the only thing that's really majorly changed is the scene of the Tippett shooting. It is no longer a four-way intersection. It's now like a T-shaped intersection. And where there was a block of residential buildings originally is now a big high school campus with like a baseball diamond and stuff.
Okay. But yeah, it's too bad that they stopped access to the sniper's nest, right? I don't know why. I mean, I can't rationalize that. But do you have any idea why they did that?
I think because they wanted to set it up with the crates to have it look exactly as it did on November 22nd. And they don't want people getting in there and messing with it or anything like that. So they just kind of like plexiglassed it off. But you can get to the window right next to that one. So, I mean, it's close enough that you can have a very accurate view of what a shooter there would have seen.
Okay.
So I don't... Sorry, go ahead.
You know, I mean, what you said about LBJ just brought home another point, and I put this in our Facebook group as well. So Johnson was in a hurry to leave, and he insisted that Jackie be there, and she was not going to leave without her husband, right? So they made special arrangements. They strong-armed the Dallas authorities, and they got him out of there. So my question is this: what if, like, because Johnson's obviously not a mind reader, right? He had no idea that Jackie would actually say that. What if Jackie had said at that point, "It's okay, my husband can stay here. I'll go by myself and stand by LBJ when he's taking the oath."
Yeah.
So then what would have happened? Kennedy would have got his autopsy at Dallas, not at Bethesda. So now what you're telling me is they had one team in Dallas to do a fake autopsy, one in Bethesda,
one at Walter Reed.
one at Walter Reed.
Yeah.
So do you see how nonsensical the whole thing gets?
Like, what if she had chosen a civilian hospital? You gotta have a team